All right, glad to have you back. Nigeria's oil and gas sector, the mainstay of Nigeria's economy, is still largely governed by the Petroleum Act and Petroleum Profit Tax Act, enacted since 1969 and 1959, respectively. Since the enactment of these laws, the global oil and gas industry has changed significantly from an investment, governance, and fiscal perspective. Although certain obsolete aspects of the aforementioned act have been amended, their inadequacies are evident, contributing to the development of the Petroleum Industry Bill, which was first presented to the National Assembly in 2008. Over 10 years later, the bill is yet to be enacted, leading to increased uncertainty and hindering the flow of the desired investments to the Nigerian oil and gas sector. The bill, which is currently at the nation's National Assembly, seeks to introduce pertinent changes to the governance, administrative, regulatory, and fiscal framework of Nigeria's oil and gas industry in order to ensure transparency, strengthening the governing institutions, and attract investments, capital, amongst other objectives. Joining me now live in the studio to talk more on the PIB is an oil and gas policy management consultant, Mr. Michael Faniron. Mr. Faniron, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. Let's start the discussion. Now, everyone is so focused now on the oil and gas industry. The Petroleum Industry Bill is the talk everywhere now. Will this solve all of the issues and challenges the industry is currently facing?
The Petroleum Industry Bill, popularly called the PIB, is a means to an end. It's not an end to in itself. The PIB is meant to jumpstart the desired reform of the oil and gas industry. But that is what is needed currently for us to provide a platform for that restructuring. The PIB is an omnibus bill. What I mean by that is that the bill that is meant to aggregate all the laws that are governing the industry, like you just mentioned. The industry is governed by the Petroleum Act of 1969, Petroleum Profit Tax Act of 1959 and its amendment. About 16 laws, actually, that are governing the industry now. So what the Petroleum Industry Bill is meant to do is to repeal all these laws, which are many, and aggregate all of them into one single entity, a manageable law that is going to govern the petroleum industry, right from the upstream to midstream to downstream, to ensure that we have a transparency and to ensure that all the sections, for example, you have all the sections of the bill that have their own objective. So from governance to administration to host community to fiscal, every one of them has their own objective. So it's going to aggregate all this law into single law. Then again, I mentioned that it's not an end in itself. Yeah. It's a means to an end. Because after the PIB is passed now, then you now begin to see the regulators and the different agencies now developing regulations, and it's based on these regulations that that is going to operationalize this bill when it is passed. So what we need now is actually the passage of this PIB, which is expected to jumpstart the required reform of the industry.
We've seen town halls, we've seen people coming to the host communities and all of that meeting at the National Assembly. Where are we? What stage are we? According to the National Assembly, they said they will pass by April. How feasible is that? Okay,
so there are different processes in the passage of the law. So the first one is the bill has to be submitted, whether it's a legislative bill or executive bill. So this time around, the PIB is an executive bill. Okay. So submission has been done. Then the next stage is actually the first reading on the floor of the National Assembly. This has been done. The next stage is the second reading, which has been done. Then after that, this is committed to the committee. To a committee in the House of Rep and in the Senate. So in the House of Rep, currently we have a dedicated ad hoc committee on PIB that is looking at this, that's working on this. In the Senate, we don't have a dedicated PIB. We have the joint committee of the upstream, gas, and downstream that are working on this. So after the second reading, these have been committed to the committee. So we passed that stage. Then the next stage is public hearing, which you mentioned now. The public hearing has been conducted about 2-3 weeks ago. So what the current status now is that the National Assembly is now collating all the views. All the memoranda that were submitted during the public hearing are now being collated to actually synthesize some of this issue. And based on that, they are going to go into what is called clause-by-clause consideration. So each clause, thousands of clauses in the PIB, are now going to be looked one by one, debated, and again, recommendation will now be made to the floor of the whole House. It's based on that. Once that is done, then there could be a third reading. And after the third reading, then you have the concurrence by the by both houses. But I don't see issue with concurrence this time around because both houses are actually more or less working together. So there'll be concurrence, and then a clean bill is passed and is sent to the executive. This time around, based on the pronouncement that we had from that leadership of the National Assembly, especially during the public hearing, is that the bill is expected to be passed by April this year. So we still hope that, that's why the fact that we're in February now, we still hope that in the next 2 months, we're still going to see the passage of this. We are all hoping, based on the pronouncement that we have from them.
We are hoping, just like analysts have said, the fiscal component of the bill is critically attracting the needed investments. Does the draft PIB have enough provisions towards this? And what other changes would you really like to see in this document? All right, so the fiscal component is just one component of the bill. So there are 4 key components. We have the governance and institution part. We have the administration, which talks around accurate management, about licensing framework. Then we have the host community, which guarantees that license to operate by the operators. Then the 4th one is the fiscal. So each component actually has a very big role to play in the reform of the industry. The objective of the fiscal one is actually to provide a framework which is forward-looking, because what we have now is, we have a cake law. It's forward-looking, it's progressive, and again, it's based on simplified tax administration system that ensures that they're able to attract investors, like you mentioned, because the objective of the fiscal framework is actually to attract investment and to ensure that the investors actually get rewarded for the risk they are putting in, and again to ensure that government at the end of the day get optimal revenue or rent for the natural resources. What we like to see in the fiscal. So I think it depends now. It depends on who you are talking to, because you speak to government. Government thinks this one is generous, not that whatever the provision we have currently is generous. You talk to the industry. The industry still think that government still needs to do more. One thing we need to note is that in any situation, though the objectives of government and the objective of investor are always the same, which is actually to maximize revenue from the oil and gas, but in terms of their goal, they always have a different goal. While government, we want to at least get maximum rent on the resource, the investor on the other side are looking at maximum return. So even if you give the investor no tax, for them not to pay tax, they will take it by both hands. But as a Nigerian, and from what I've heard from experts, I'm not expert in fiscal, but I've been privileged to sit in different sessions, in modeling sessions where we've done a lot of sensitivity analysis, both in Nigeria and abroad on this PIB. I know that this is better than what we have currently. But what we are just saying is that those people who are considering it, the National Assembly must make sure that there is one objective for the PIB, especially the fiscal section, is that it must, at the end of the day, attract the needed investment that we need in this industry, and make sure that it's the adequate reward. There's a balance between what the government wants in terms of optimal revenue and in terms of what the investor wants in terms of return on their investment. Because if at the end of the day we pass the bill and nobody's investing, then we are not going to do anything with our resource. So this needs to be balanced at the end of the day. The price of crude seems to be maintaining this steady rise lately, and we've been seeing that positive. What effects will this have on the Nigerian economy? Or else, already we are seeing the shift in the price of PMS. So what effect will this have on our economy?
Yeah, normally as a crude oil export dependent economy, it should actually be a good news for us. But unfortunately, it's not totally good news for us. Because good news would have been because now that we are getting more money. Yeah, then again, we have a budget deficit of around 5 trillion. So because the crude oil is benchmarked lower than what is selling now, that means it gives us enough money at least to be able to finance our deficit budget. But again, mind you, that's not the focus of our discussion today. What is driving this increase? So it could be because OPEC has actually reduced production. So OPEC may reduce production. So if our production is supposed to be 1.8 and they say, okay, you only produce 1.5, that means even if it goes up, then you need to multiply it by volume. So we might not be getting more. But let's assume everything remains constant. So we are going to get more revenue. But at the end of the day, then we are now going to be paying more for the price of imported product because we depend on imported product. So what this means is that 2 things can happen. It's either government passes this cost to consumers. But yesterday, NNPC says the price is not going to be increased in February. So it's either NNPC is going to take margin cut, or we are back to the era of subsidy. So it's either government pass it to the consumer. Again, looking at the inflation, you just discussed that one. I don't know whether government want to pass that one again to consumer again at this time. Then that means the alternative is to go to subsidy. That means whatever we are getting from with our right hand through the on the increase in crude, we are going to be losing in our left hand using the subsidy payment. So we're actually in a very in a critical situation. So the solution to this is to develop the downstream sector, is to make sure that the refineries are working, is to make sure that we provide the needed infrastructure in the downstream sector. If you look at the GDP figure that released, it's got that the contribution of the oil provide about 80%, 70 to 80% of our revenue, but it contributes so low to our GDP. Why?
Allow me to interject you, please, because I want us to just quickly move to deregulation. Okay. Because when we're talking about addressing all of these issues, I think deregulation is one of the things that I've seen experts talk about. What does it mean for the downstream? And what do you think are the challenges militating a rightful way, that's rightful implementation of a fully deregulated market?
Okay. So what I was talking about before was around how do we make sure that we address this issue of oil price and affecting us. Sure. Again, one of it is actually deregulation. Deregulation in sense means that when government hands off pricing of products, and that is determined by market forces. However, deregulation means different into different people in Nigeria. So let me itemize what deregulation is and what deregulation is not. Let me just give some points. Deregulation is not about reducing the price of petroleum products. That's not deregulation. Deregulation does not stop by just removing subsidy. It's part of it, but that's not the end of deregulation. It's not by removing subsidy. Deregulation goes beyond on that. Deregulation means creating an enabling environment where there's competitive play in the sector, where you have people who their competitors can compete fairly and they can guarantee price to the consumer at a competitive price, at a transparent price, and at an efficient price. So there must be competitiveness in the sector. There must be transparency, which is one of the things I think we need to talk about this, that's lacking in the sector now. And again, the price must be efficient. So the consumer must not be paying for the inefficiency of the player, of the supplier, or the inefficiency of the marketer. So these are things that must make sure. And in deregulation, we need a strong regulator. A strong regulator, not just to come and fix price, not to come and fix price anyway. The regulator needs to come and monitor or what is happening in the state and ensure transparency again, and ensure efficiency in the price that is being passed to the consumer, and ensure that there is no monopoly in the market, that there's no one just a major dominant player in the market. That's what deregulation means. Then talking about what are the factors that are militating against deregulation in Nigeria, I will put them about in 3 boxes. One is infrastructure. The second one are structural issues. And the third one are maybe legal issues. So in terms of infrastructure issue, one of the things that we depend on importation. Currently, the refinery are working. I'm not sure from June 2019 whether any barrel of crude oil was processed in any of our refineries. The refineries have actually been operating around 12 to 8% utilization in the last few years. So every time we're having a turnaround. So the refineries are not working. Even if the refineries are working 100% today, they are still not going to meet.
They can't.
We are going to go meet our demand. Then again, is in terms of the import reception facility. So the infrastructure, when I talk infrastructure, we start from import reception facility. So our port is so shallow. So when we import this petroleum product, they are not the big vessel that bring it from Europe are not able to berth at our port. So they have to berth offshore Lomé or something. Then you now have another vessel, which you call a daughter vessel, going there and transloading this, and that takes another 14 days. Then you pay for that one again. It's included in the template. Then again, it's in a situation where it's even put in a pipeline. You discover, if you look at NNPC report in recent year, you see that we are billions of naira that we're actually losing because of theft in the pipeline, because of the deterioration condition of the pipeline. Aripo comes to your mind every time you see people, you see police pursuing them, you see theft in the Jegun, in all this fire, because people are, you know, so these are some of the issues that are militating against one. So those are around the infrastructure side. Again, around infrastructure is even the road. We don't have a rail. Now we are building a rail system. Again, in other countries, you have rail system that are actually able to be, which is cheaper than road. Then talking about the structural issues. The structural issues, first of all, is the marketers are complaining that they don't get this FX, Forex at the same rate that NNPC is getting. And again, all this all about transparency. If we have a transparency system, we know how much is NNPC getting this dollar from. So everybody must get this. And then we have single importer. As it is now, NNPC seems to be the sole importer of PMS, of petroleum products in the country, which is not supposed to be. Is not supposed to be so. Then another structural issue that you have a single player actually dictating the price of products. It's still NNPC that is dictating the price, because when you see if NNPC increases the ex-depot price today, you see the price of petroleum products go up. That's some of the structural issues that we are. Then in terms of the legal issues, the current legislation, current law that we have actually still allows a regulator to fix the prices of petroleum products. And again, the recent regulations that we have in the country has not really guaranteed that we are into food deregulation. You see that government saying we are deregulated today, tomorrow we have not deregulated. So those are three buckets and some of the issues that are actually militating against deregulation.
Let's wrap up on this note. Give us a snapshot of activities when it comes about to importation up till it gets to the consumer. Let them understand what this really looks like.
So there are a lot of activities, and which again each of them actually carry their own cost. So the first part is that you have the importer open LC, letter of credit, to go and buy products, whether you buy in Rotterdam, you buy in Belgium, or wherever he buys, at the refinery. So after it's purchased, that is done the financial transaction. Then you have the mother vessel, which brings this product from Europe and brings it to our own shore. Again, like I said, it's not able to berth in our own shore. He berths offshore Nigeria. Then after that, you see the daughter vessel now doing transshipment, transloading, bringing it to the jetty. Then when they bring this to the jetty, then it's pumped at the jetty. From the jetty, it goes to the terminal. So you see the tank farm in Apapa is pumped into the terminal. Or in some cases, it's pumped into the pipeline that takes it to Mosimi, that takes it to Ibadan. It's supposed to take it to Ilorin, take it to Suleja, and the rest. Again, I don't know if any of this one is working. When it's working, we lose quite a lot. Then from the terminal, it's now trucked out. In Nigeria, it's now trucked out to the retail station. Then at the retail station, is taken to the pump. But each of these points, there must be efficiency. That's what I talk around efficiency. When there is no efficiency, because if there is no incentive for them to be efficient, when prices are fixed and whether you're efficient or not, you are going to sell at one price, then people are not going to incentivize themselves, or they are not going to work towards efficiency. So these are the stages of importation, and each of these stages actually carry costs with them.
In a minute, do you think that the PIB will be passed at this time?
I believe that PIB will be passed. I'm actually very optimistic. Why do I think so? Is that currently this is an executive bill, so I don't see any problem when it's passed. A problem of assent. Then the other one, I've seen a sense of urgency. Both arms of government, in terms of legislature and executive, there's a sense of urgency actually for them to pass it. In terms of the legislature as well, I've seen them working actually very well. I'm opportunity to work with them on some of these things. So I see them, and both houses are actually working together. The leadership is committed. If you look at the public hearing, during the public hearing, you see the Senate president sitting in the public hearing for the Senate. In fact, on the day one of the public hearing for the House of Rep, the speakers sat all through that day. And both houses are working together, which will make issue of concurrence or no concurrence will not be an issue. They are working together. And they made pronouncement. So we believe they are men of honor that this is going to be passed by April. And again, the last one is that I want to believe that it's even not whether we like it or not, is that we have to do it. Because all the current situation of things does not, they are not in our favor. It's either we sink or we swim. So we don't have any option than to pass this thing. Otherwise, all the natural resources, all the crude that we are talking about, is going to go into wastage. Like I mentioned, I mentioned it the other time that our reserve, our proven reserve is 36 billion barrel per day. If as of today, let's even say after PIB is passed, we are able to ramp up our production to 2.5 million barrel per day. in 25 years or 30 years, when analysts have said oil, the relevance of oil is not going to go beyond 25 or 30 years. So in that 25 to 30 years, we will only be able to do half of that. So we're able to do only 18 billion barrel. So that means about 18 billion of what we have now is going to be wasted. It's going to, whether we use it at that time or not, again, we might not get the value that we need to get, which is again why we need to make sure that we have the local industrialization and be able to add value to this locally. And again, if you do that, you are going to, the contribution of the oil and gas to the GDP will increase. There will be jobs, there will be all things. We can be a hub of refining in Nigeria. A lot of African countries, I saw a report recently that the top economy in Africa, their top FX demand, their top importation, although it was spending FX on, is petroleum products. So why can't Nigeria be the one supplying the West Africa? There is so much market, there is so much huge market in West Africa. So we need to develop our downstream sector. We need to build petrochemical, and we have competitive advantage in all these things.
Indeed, Mr.
So I'm so passionate about this. So yes, that I believe that governments needs to do this. These are not, they are quick wins. They are not, they are not rocket science, and we need to do this.
Oil and gas policy and management consultant, Mr. Michael Fanero. Thank you very much, and a happy birthday to you. I appreciate you coming out on your birthday to talk to us on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right then.